If you're heading off to Disney and don't know where to start, click yourself over to MiceChat and you're out of the dark. They take the dizzy out of Disney for you and for me. So come on, it's MiceChat, that's where it's at.
Welcome back to another very interesting podcast / videocast. So Doug, since we're going to be merging today the MiceTube Live with our monthly MiceChat podcast, I'm going to let you do the MiceChat opening.
Well, I wasn't even prepared for that after you did that. But yeah, MiceChat podcast back with another one. And we have the man who just spoke right here, Dusty Sage, man. How's it going, my friend?
Great. We are sheltering in place in the MiceChat mansion, as we have been now for a little over a month. And I'm trying to create my own, magical world. You can see got Mickey Mouse on my shoulder. He tells me to do the worst things, Doug.
Oh, no. That's not good.
He is a troublemaker. And we have with us today Mr. Logan Collins. It's like Hollywood squares here, folks. You look at all the squares and you see who's there. Logan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Sheltering in place as well, but I'm doing good. Yep, hanging in there.
And we have Miss Chloe Ferreira down at the bottom. How are you, Chloe?
I'm good. So on the bottom, I should look up at somebody.
Well, I'm not sure because what we see when we're recording is completely different when it spits out the file when we're all done. I never know where the squares are going to be, and I tend to look down at wherever the squares are. So if you all think I'm nuts, I am. We have a lot to discuss on this show, and these are crazy times for everyone, but even crazier for the theme park companies because their industry can't operate. Like restaurant industry decimated, but some restaurants are still able to do takeout and delivery. Airlines are down to they've lost 99%, some of them, their customers, but they're still flying. The theme park industry is 100% shut down. There is no one operating in the U.S. I hear that one of the Universal parks may be operating, or was the last time I heard, which is just bizarre, but not in the United States. Everything here is shut down. And so how do they make their money? How do they survive? How long will they be closed? When will they be, reopened? And how? What will it look like? And those are the questions that people are just going nuts about online. And no matter how often we write about it, it changes the next day because a governor somewhere or the CDC or somebody from the government says things are different. So on the one hand, they're saying, social distancing needs to stay in place until at least the end of summer. Theme parks are a high-touch environment, lap bars, seat belts, front gates, tickets. Florida, you put your thumbprint on a scanner. So you do the same thing at other theme parks. And kids and jungle gyms, there's just too many things for a theme park to not have trouble even after, we start letting people back out into the world. So I'd like to know, Doug, you're in this theme park world. It's your passion. You've been podcasting about it for as long as there's been podcasting. What are your thoughts on how difficult this is for theme parks to adapt and recover in general?
They depend everything on every single data of operation when they're going in. They budget well ahead of time. And if you don't have any kind of operation and this is what you're budgeted for, it tears everything apart in their operations. And I never ever thought that something like this would ever happen. So I'm clueless on how it's going to recover. I know that some of the parks obviously are major corporations. They'll be able to, survive this, but the smaller corporations like Six Flags and all them, they're going to be in it deep. It's an issue. It's going to be this industry is going to be completely different when everything reopens.
Yeah, and it's such a weird time for it because the industry was bigger than it had ever been. Just before all of this happened, parks were having record attendance. talking about building whole new resorts. Universal was building a whole nother resort area in Orlando to rival the size of the one that they already had. And, new parks popping up everywhere. And even Cedar Fair, years ago, we used to talk about how they really only made money during haunt season. And, it was always speculation that Knott's might not survive another year. But in the last, 5 years or so, they've been making a lot of money and packed all the time. And Disneyland was raising their prices. And every time people would say, oh, no one can afford to go to Disneyland anymore. But Disney would keep getting busier. And Knott's would get busier because the people who were priced out would go to Knott's. Yeah. And it was just like this perfect storm of everything just being like, theme park industry is where it's at. That's how you make money. Everybody wanted to own a theme park, all the big media conglomerates. Now, all of a sudden, can you imagine being the CEO of SeaWorld, Six Flags, or Cedar Fair when your only product is theme parks and they're closed indefinitely? And how do you pay the rent on some of the properties? A lot of these parks are not on properties owned by these companies. They're renting that land. It's leased.
Animal care and the animal habitats in order to take care of, a lot of those parks have, little zoo areas or SeaWorld where they have, tons and tons of mammals to take care of.
Yeah, exactly right, Chloe. SeaWorld is probably the most exposed of any of the corporations I can think of because their costs are so enormous compared to what everyone else, everyone else can lay everyone off. SeaWorld has to maintain all of those keepers and all that equipment and all that water purification, all that food. And it's tens of thousands of dollars a day, probably just in food and electrical on each one of their parks. So I'm really curious how this is going to shake out. And we won't necessarily know until everything reopens, but we will see. So on that discussion of how long this might happen, because that's really going to impact the industry more than anything. So we know Disneyland and Universal are going to survive. They can take out endless loans. They're backed by companies that make movies and sell other products. They'll be okay. But the SeaWorlds and Six Flags and Knott's Berry Farms of the world really need parks to reopen, sooner rather than later. So how long is this all going to be closed, Chloe?
We don't know. No one knows. I was just thinking about Walt Disney World because I live in Florida and the governor kindly advised that some of the beaches are reopening for visitors a few hours a day, including Jacksonville Beach. And it's not being taken very well. So I don't think that even if, some Florida officials okay for theme parks or, public spaces to open, that Disney would necessarily. I really think Disneyland and the state of California should lead by example in this case, and Disney World should just stay, on lockdown until Disneyland is at least in better condition, or until we have, we know procedures of what exactly is going to happen, what exactly, they're going to do for guests as, precautionary measures, what they're going to require of guests before they come into the park, if people need to wear masks, what is going to happen. We talked about it on our last two videos, what could possibly the parks look like, and will they do any kind of screening or anything like that? We just don't know. But, did you guys hear about the Disney stock analyst who analyzed that Disney won't reopen until 2021?
What? No. I didn't.
Disney stock took a little dive. Was it today? And he put out this article, I think it was on Yahoo Finance, that he's predicting that the parks won't open until January. And I don't know if I believe that. I would certainly hope not. Who knows? But just looking at Florida's numbers, I know you're not supposed to, look at it day by day, but we can't help it. But the last 4 days, the number of new cases has gone down. 4 days ago, it was at 1,200, and then it's significantly gone down to today or yesterday, where it was at a little over 700. So those are new cases, and that's still a lot, but it's the most that it's kind of gone down for a while. So definitely, a bigger curve to make it go away completely, but at least it's some progress. So we'll see.
That's kind of a rabbit hole to go down, to look at numbers, because people see that the curve is flattening in a lot of cities, or the cases are starting to drop. And so they immediately then want to go outside and go back to the way life was, because they're tired of being at home. But the virus isn't gone. And if you didn't already catch it, you go back outside and we're right back to the beginning of this pandemic, and the numbers start spiking again. So the worst thing for a Disney would be to open too soon.
Right.
A whole bunch of cases start spreading on the Disney properties, and then have Disney be linked as the source for a second wave of infections, or the beaches in Florida, or movie theaters, or anywhere else. Logan, what are your thoughts on what the soonest we might see the parks reopen?
Well, I'm going to echo Chloe a little bit, and I really totally don't know. I mean, it's changing day by day, and it's very confusing. I mean, it was April 1st for a while, right as they shut down, and then it went into June 1st, and Disney's still taking. I checked this morning because I tried to, for fun, make a reservation at the Grand Californian Hotel, and I could still get a reservation for June 5th through the 9th, I think it was, for a whopping $700 a night. So I think that, and now we're hearing maybe the end of summer, and now we're hearing even 2021. So I think what's going to happen, at least I think what's going to happen, is we're probably going to see other areas of the world open up first, meaning movie theaters. You're going to see even gyms and stuff open as the summer progresses. And Disney will probably just keep an eye on that, regardless of whether they can open or not. And the government says they will, or they can. And I think like I was thinking today, I was in a mask, and it's hot, and it's not even very hot outside right now. So you go and you put a mask on somebody in 101-degree Anaheim day on a Saturday. I don't even know if Disney wants to be open for that in the summer. I mean, I think it's probably most beneficial for them to hold off as long as they can, while still being able to hold on to funding and everything else, and try to eliminate as many potential, how do I want to say it? Not roadblocks, but like precautions that you would need to in order to enter their parks. Because the longer they wait, the longer we have to figure this thing out and potentially find an antiviral drug that could help, or eventually a vaccine. And I think that they'll wait through the summer at least.
Or they may open sooner than you think if they can get blanket immunity. So, and by immunity, I don't mean for the disease. I mean for legal ramifications. So if the government says that no one can sue any organization, the onus is on you as an individual to decide if it's safe for you to go outside. And if you do, and you get sick, or you bring something home, even if you've already had this disease, and so you think you're immune, but it's on your clothing and your hands, and you go home and get grandma sick and she dies, you can't sue Disney for that, because you made the decision to go. Right now, people could sue Disney. Their parks were unclean. It was the place that you picked up the disease. People on cruise ships do it all the time. When they catch norovirus from the buffet on Carnival Cruise Line, they sue Carnival Cruise Line, and they win sometimes. So it could definitely happen to Disney or any of the theme parks. And I think that's the thing more than anything else that's keeping them from opening. I mean, sure, they'll say they want to keep their guests and their staff safe, but at the end of the day, it's their lawyers saying, whoa, we can't afford the lawsuits. And, you can wipe out an entire day's worth of profits on one lawsuit. So it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. And I think that if that comes, it gives them a little more leeway to decide. And it gives individuals more of free will to decide as well. I don't know that our society's there yet. I don't know that I'm willing to leave my home yet until I can at least get tested and find out if I've already had COVID, or if I get it and I feel a little safer, or if there's a great treatment or cure. So that's my short and long of when they might open. I don't think it can happen before the end of summer. I really don't. But into the fall, now we have these questions. Some things are eventually going to have to start reopening. They're just things our society needs that have to be produced, and certain jobs are going to start, reopening. And we're going to find out very quickly if infections start spreading. And if they don't, the theme parks might start wanting to experiment. They might open their shopping districts. You might see Downtown Disney and City Walk reopen. You might see the Chicken Dinner Restaurant or the Berry Market reopen at Knott's Berry Farm before the parks open. See how many people show up, if there's demand for it. And Disney World, they might just keep a cluster of hotels open and leave everything else shut just to see what's going on. So that is something that could happen. They're doing that right now at Shanghai. Disneyland. They've reopened the hotel there, and we'll see what happens with all of that. I personally am very worried about a second wave of infections this fall. I think it would be horrible for the theme parks if they hired everyone back, started booking vacations, and then almost immediately had to shut down again for a second wave and cancel vacations and furlough employees again. It's just, that is a recipe for disaster that I think we're headed towards if there's not a little more clarity from the government and maybe some sort of legislation to protect employers from legality. So that's my concern on when they could reopen. But there's someone at Disney that might have a little more say in all of this than normal. And Bob Iger has, we've all heard, is kind of taking the reins back at Disney. So Bob Chapek is the new CEO of the company, and Bob Iger announced to a bunch of financial publications that he's running the company again. So even though he's not CEO, he's on the board. He's executive chairman of the board. He's technically Bob Chapek's boss now, and he's calling the shots at the company. But also in the state of California is going to be advising on the reopening of the state's economy. So Governor Newsom in California has appointed Bob Iger and also the head of Apple and a bunch of other high-profile companies to this task force that's going to decide, what sectors of the economy need to get a boost and how are they going to do it. So Bob Iger is suddenly one of the most powerful people in the entire state, if not the country, in deciding how businesses are going to reopen. That is some crazy stuff. Doug, I can see Bob making some decisions that, regarding what might be best for the company that a week ago before we heard this might not have even been possible to think about. What do you think?
Yeah, but I mean, again, Disney is a huge company. It's a huge corporation. It's one of those things that if you need leadership, I think Bob Iger is kind of one of those guys that can help lead the way as well. So you're mentioning Apple and everybody else. So I mean, yeah, that's just for economy though. That's just for entertainment in general, just them surviving and stuff like that, and technology. But going back to you're talking about. Like we said, Disney parks are going to be fine. They'll be fine. They will survive all this. Universal will survive. They have Comcast. Comcast will survive this easily. It's my worry is more just with everything else beyond Disney and Universal. Like you were just reading up that Dollywood is going to be doing furloughs on all their employees. Like they're going to close it down for the entire year. Like it's done. So I don't even know if that's going to come back after this year, whatever, these smaller companies. But, Bob Iger and Disney, they'll survive. And so will these major corporations. That's good for our economy for them. But there's still, the smaller businesses that I feel are going to be left behind after this.
Yeah, and all of the bailouts that are going on right now are really emergency for workers being laid off and companies that are, trying to not furlough all their employees so that they can keep people on the payroll. And companies that are in the theme park industry have to furlough their employees. And there's no way to keep them on the books because they could be shut down for 6 months or longer. And so that is a worry. There's going to have to be some sort of bailout for the entertainment economy for us to be comfortable that a Hershey Entertainment, Dollywood and Silver Dollar City and Knott's Berry Farm and Six Flags and those companies can survive at all. But I don't think we're at a point where any legislator wants to talk about taking tax dollars to bail out entertainment, which is not a necessity. So I think we kind of have to wait to see what will happen. And there are some states where the majority of the money they make is tourism. Well, tourism's gone. Hotels are going to be lost, restaurants are going to be lost, entertainment venues are going to be lost. So if you're Hawaii and, the majority of your state's economy is tourism, you're in terrible shape. And it's going to take a bailout from the federal government to save that industry because hotels are not going to be able to afford to reopen after being closed so long, especially if they're renting the land that they're on. So I really hope that a Bob Iger can change that. You know, him being on the task force really changed my opinion on whether or not tourism recovers in the state of California, because it is in his best interest for more than just Disneyland to survive. He at this point needs Legoland and the museums and the aquariums and the hotels. He needs all of that to come back so that people want to come from Australia and Japan to California and stay a week, because the Disneyland Resort isn't a draw for a whole week. Yeah, Logan.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just going to say, maybe Doug can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I believe they were saying that when one theme park, like not California Adventure Disneyland, but like let's say Universal opens a major expansion, there tends to be a rise in attendance to every other theme park, just because people are traveling here to visit that one theme park, and then why only go there? You know, why don't you visit the rest of them? Is that true? Does that tend to happen?
It's true to the sense of a close distance. If there are parks that are close, we're talking about within, you know, basically a 30-mile, 40-mile the radius of that expansion. Yes, you can.
Okay.
But I mean, you don't see an increase in Six Flags Magic Mountain with an expansion over at Disneyland. You will never ever see that. So, but yes, not Universal. When you're talking about small, like within a certain range, Orlando's a perfect example of that. You'll see an increase in many of the parks around there and local areas. So that's why, you know, like for example, in Orlando Fun Spots, why their attendance have gone up so much is because of the increase of attendance at Universal with Islands of Adventure, Harry Potter, and everything like that. People they're doing all the extra little tourism things because they're like booking 2 weeks, 3 weeks there now. So you're going to see those things, but they have to be, the numbers are really more when it's close.
Okay. Yeah. And all of the international travel is really in jeopardy for quite some time. And that's a big worry for Florida. So how Florida recovers from all of this is going to be very different than how California recovers. California has a large state economy. If California was its own country, we'd be one of the largest economies in the world. So California has an advantage over a Florida that is relying on tourism from out of the state, but also out of the country. And if Australians don't start traveling again, the Japanese and the Chinese and the Europeans don't start coming, they're really hurting. And we're going to see some fallout across the industry. And, you know, little parks, like Legoland there, Wiki Wacky Springs, and all the little miniature zoos and things. I don't know how they survive this without a bailout. So that's what we should be pushing our legislators for when the time comes. So a month or two from now, when we start looking at things reopening, we all need to be screaming at our legislators that we want to return to a life that includes the entertainment options that we love. And theaters are going to need a bailout. Hotels, restaurants, theme parks, museums, zoos. This is an economy that is the most exposed to this shutdown more than anything else, because the last thing that people spend money on when they don't have it is entertainment. You feed your family and you house yourself first, and pay for health insurance and things if you can, and you worry about a vacation when you've got money. And I think there's going to be a lot of people without money, and a lot of countries that aren't going to let their people travel for a while. Yeah. So that's the craziness, and it's really starting to sink in now. You're starting to hear more about that, and that's why I think we're seeing stock prices drop. And along the lines of this discussion, I just looked today, excuse me as I look down at my phone here, at how some of the different theme park companies are performing on the stock market. It gives you an idea of what people that really research these industries are thinking. If the stock price drops, it's not just because they don't think a company is going to be able to make money for a while. It's also about whether or not they think a company is going to survive. Because the worst thing a shareholder can have happen is you hold a share in a company that goes under, and then you lose 100% of your value. So if a company is just losing money, you might hold on to it or even buy more stock because it's a chance to make money as they recover. And you can kind of see how people are thinking about it. Six Flags, for example, this year was riding at a high of about $54-ish, $50 mid 50 range. And then they fell all the way down to $10 a share at the height of this concern. They've only recovered to about $15 a share right now. So that could change. You know, somebody might put out an advisory that definitely Six Flags is secured some sort of a loan or a guarantee that they'll be able to operate for a certain number of years, and it might be a time to buy. But that doesn't appear to be the case right now because it's still hovering down in the $10 to $15 range. So that is scary for them. SeaWorld, of course, probably the worst right now. They were rising, which is shocking. They were at $25 a share earlier in last year, and they rose all the way to about $37 a share. So they're starting to recover from Blackfish and some other things and show some steady improvement. I mean, it's an amazing trajectory they were on. And then the sudden fall was all the way down below $10. They got down to about $7 a share, you can imagine. And right now they're only at about $10 a share. So they're definitely in a range that they're in deep trouble. It's harder to get loans and credit and things when you don't have a higher share price because you don't have as much value in your company. It's like mortgaging your house or your car or something to get a loan. It's hard to do that for a publicly traded company if their share price is undervalued like that. Then the Cedar Fair parks, which trade under the name Fun, F-U-N, which is a great name for them. They were very steady. They were up in the mid 50 to 60 range, so upper 50s, and they fell all the way down to just under $15 a share at their lowest, and they're back up to $25 a share. So they've recovered almost $10 in share value just in the last couple of weeks, which is a sign that people do think that unlike SeaWorld and Six Flags, that maybe Cedar Fair has a little more opportunity of bouncing back. And I find that interesting that because they don't have a movie studio behind them or anything else. So maybe there's something we don't know about, such as maybe there is a merger acquisition talks going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. So some people in the investment community may think that that this company is poised to be bought out by somebody with deeper pockets. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. I'm going to do a little research. And then, of course, Disney, which, you know, sure, they had a humongous fall. They were trading at about $154 a share, and they fell at their lowest down to about $85 a share, which is a tremendous fall. But they're back up to around $100 a share, just over $100 a share now. That's still a lot of money. There's still a lot of value in Disney because they're more than just theme parks. And yeah, their movies aren't going into movie theaters, but they still have those movies in the can waiting to be released, and they will make some money on those. Merchandise, Chloe, they're still churning out shirts and dresses and pins and stuff, aren't they?
Disney Plus is, thank goodness for Disney Plus.
Yeah.
They released that at the best time possible without even knowing it.
Yeah, they went from nothing a year ago to being larger than Netflix in less than a year. So,
and it's also because of the fact that they did smart moves. Like they brought Frozen 2 on immediately. They Onward, which was supposed to be in theaters, they just brought it straight onto Disney Plus. Everybody's like, these are brand new movies, and we could watch it just by paying $7.
yeah, and they gave it away to people who have Verizon. So if you have Verizon, you get a year of free Disney Plus. So that's a lot of people. And by the way, folks, if you have Verizon, call and find out if you can get free Disney Plus. It's worth it. You'll find all sorts of things. And even if you don't love it and want to pay for it later, get it for free right now. Free is free. CBS All Access was giving away a month of free service, so I have that right now. If it's free, I'm doing it. Right now, I'm home and bored. So I just wanted to give a shout out right now to all of our cast member friends at the theme parks everywhere. Disney has just completed their furloughs, and almost every employee of the theme parks has been furloughed. Most of the Imagineers, a lot of the people in Disney's Creative Campus up in Glendale, the people who make the storybooks and approve the product and the new dresses and pins and all that stuff that we love, a lot of those people have been furloughed. And the reason behind that is it's estimated that just the theme parks by themselves are losing up to $30 million a day. So for a company the size of Disney to recoup the fact that at the beginning of this crisis, when they thought maybe they would be able to reopen, they kept almost everyone on the books and everyone got a paycheck. And that was a tremendous loss to the company, considering that now all of this looks like it's going to continue a while. So they have to make some of that back because they're a publicly traded company. So one of the ways they're doing that is through short-term furloughs for creative people like Imagineers and the Creative Campus folks. A lot of the folks, I'm shocked the number of folks even that let go from the studios, animators, film projects that are in the works have stopped. Even on things that could be done from home, have been stopped at Disney. Disney's being much more aggressive than other players. So our hearts are with all of you who have been furloughed. We hope you get your jobs back. We are rooting for you. And we want you to make sure that you're taking advantage of all state and federal programs so that you get the money that you deserve. So if you're not 100% sure, Disney in particular, your HR department and your unions have resources to help you figure out what you might qualify for and help you figure out how to file. So please do that. Don't suffer in silence, at least while those programs are available. They will run out of money eventually, and you'll be sorry you didn't do it. So please don't wait. So here's another side of this weirdness that's going on. Disney has stopped everything. They're not doing any work on the new Avengers Campus. They're not fixing Rise of the Resistance to try and make it run stably when the parks reopen. They're not completing the Haunted Mansion mega refurbishment.
Yeah.
They had ripped up the streets on Main Street the day after the closures, thinking they were going to be able to keep working, and then just 2 days later stopped everything. So Main Street's ripped up at Disneyland, part of it. They've stopped and they've left. Security is there, a few maintenance people just to cycle rides and make sure things don't get broken. And that's about it. They have about 5 people in the janitorial staff. They go through custodial and clean the same things up every day. So the parks will look clean, at least at Disneyland. At Disney World, I just heard that they are going to make a decision to, there are certain parts of the property that can be left unmanicured, for example. They'll need to keep mowing the grass in areas, that don't have guest traffic and that aren't at fire risk, and they're going to try to save a little more. So even though they were down to a skeleton crew there, it's going to be a few less pieces of that skeleton in the coming days. But over at Universal, there's still some stuff going on. So yeah, the parks are shut down, but Doug, I'm hearing that there's work still going on. What have you heard about what's happening?
Yeah, they do. They're still working on Nintendo over there right now. It sounds like that it's a full go right now on the Mario Kart ride that they've been working on there. So as far as I understand, there is still construction happening right now at Universal Hollywood. So apparently it's essential. I don't know.
I don't know how either, because Anaheim is much more lenient with Disney and what they want to do than LA County is with Universal.
Yeah, it makes
and
sense.
Somehow Universal convinced LA that it was safe for them to keep working, but Disney somehow thought they couldn't. Is really, it's odd. And maybe for Disney it was more of a financial thing. If we're shut down, we're not making money, we're not going to spend money. And Universal, like they did with Potter and some other things early on, decided they were going to keep working so they could get it done and use this downturn as an opportunity to recover when things get better. So I'm shocked. They also did a major deconstruction thing. I heard they tore down the Whoville from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It's right next to the Psycho House there, and that's gone. Somebody shared some aerial photography the other day, and sure enough, it's gone. So they're doing things they don't have to do.
Yeah, it was. And it's been rumored that they were going to tear down that Whoville for years. So
Yes.
It's just so funny that now's the time when it happens. It just seems like such an odd thing. But, this is kind of Comcast, right? Comcast tends to operate in this kind of fashion where they just do, and they just go and they get it done. And they don't really have like a care for a time schedule.
No, if Disney had done it, let's say Disney used this opportunity to tear down Mr. Toad's Wild Ride at Disneyland. I'm sorry, Logan. Did I just give you a heart attack?
No, I'm thinking, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the ride, but I'm thinking of the backlash. People would have stormed the gates. Like
Yes.
there would be no quarantine. There would be
No,
nothing.
there would
And
be
the
no
gates would
social
be
distancing.
completely
We'd be
smashed
in there.
open.
Right. We'd be putting it back inside the building, right? But at Universal, there has never been nostalgia really in the company about their rides and attractions and characters or any of that. They are a movie studio company. And when you build a set for a movie, you rip it down the day that you're done filming and you move on to the next thing. And if they need to go back and do reshoots later, they rebuild the set. And so that's Universal's mentality about everything. So they ripped down Castle Frankenstein when I was a kid, which I loved and I thought was iconic and I couldn't believe it. And tore out Battlestar Galactica and the collapsing bridge and all of this stuff. They don't care because they're a movie studio and they're about the now and keeping things fresh. And the longer things stay, the harder it is to get rid of them. Like Backdraft. They kept Backdraft too long and it was really hard for them to get rid of. Right now, the thing that they've kept too long is Waterworld.
Yeah.
Very hard for them to get rid of. They have announced that Waterworld is in its final season at least a half dozen times.
Yeah, and then they also remodeled the entire thing like 5 years ago. Like it's a brand new stage and everything. And
Yes.
they kept on saying it's going to be going, but it's not.
Exactly. But they're one of those companies that can get away with it. So I loved hearing that they were still working. And they have that whole new resort that they're building, Epic Universe, is that what it's called? In Orlando. I hope they're still working actively on that. I'm not 100% sure that that's in active development right now. Do you know anything at all?
That might be a little bit on hold.
Yeah.
It's not going to not happen because the city of Orlando is too invested into this thing now. Because it's more than just Universal. It's also Orlando has a big hand in this thing because of the transportation and everything that's happening there. So it's still going to happen, but it is. I think it's on hold. I think it might be until 2030 until we actually see this thing fully open and functional. So I think that we might be seeing it might take another 4 years before, this thing's fully up and running.
I need my theme parks to reopen. So in the back of my head, I'm trying to think of ways they can recover. So when I hear you say that they might wait on new things for 5 years or new rides might not open, they might not finish things, what are we going to write about? Like, that's my whole life. I don't want to go back to telecom.
I think we'll still have plenty to write about because, when
too.
it's open, there'll be a lot of things that have changed.
Yeah.
And, with our Monday at Disneyland updates, there's so much that change in a week, even without new things opening, on any normal day at Disneyland. So I think
plus, yeah, and plus also remember, creative stories are always going to happen. Half of the stories that we write and love are of things that never actually get developed, right? So you're going to always have these stories come in. So it is always going to give you fodder. It's just, is it going to actually be stuff that's going to be developed? That's the question.
That's exactly right. And the fun of conjecture. So we'll keep bringing you conjecture, folks. We'll have Doug on. He can talk about all the things that may not happen in the theme parks all over the world.
My favorite thing to talk about.
Anything we've missed, Doug, that you can think of news-wise for any of the other theme parks or organizations that you've heard? Anything that is still in development or anyone that's really struggling that you're worried is in jeopardy? Anything that we should talk about?
Well, I just mentioned, mostly the smaller companies. I from my understanding, Six Flags is completely on hold of doing anything brand new next year. Like, this is going to be the first year that they literally are not going to do anything for 2021. So, and I don't know anything about what's going on with Cedar Fair right now. I do know one of the things you were talking about Cedar Fair and their and how they're able to have a better market right now is, I do know that each park sits upon a very expensive piece of real estate right now, which is Six Flags doesn't have quite the real estate value as all the Cedar Fair parks do. And there's a lot of money within those areas at Cedar Fair. So I don't know how they did it from back in the past, but they were able to find out where the most expensive pieces of real estate are in those certain cities and be able to get a hold of that. And I think that's what's going to help them a lot too, is just the value of the real estate of those areas.
Yeah, but there'll be some pressure because they're publicly traded corporations. And all it takes is
Yeah.
one shareholder with a lot of value to say, we need to sell this property over here for X hundreds of billions of dollars to help finance the losses that we shareholders suffered during the downturn.
Yeah.
And
we could see that. We could see a 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 parks of the Cedar Fair chain sold and gone because
easily.
of this. Yeah, I could see that happening to Dorney Park. I could see that happening to Worlds of Fun. Those are parks that are in serious danger. But I don't think that we'll ever see something happen to Cedar Point or Knott's Berry Farm or one of the higher populated, most attended at ones. That I think that those are ones that they'll be able to hang on to. But I could totally see like Dorney Park. I could see that gone. That real estate's too much money right there.
Terrifying. Yeah, and I can see it too. And there's not a lot that fans can do to save something like that, because that really is all about finances. And at the end of the day, if you want the company to survive and they struggle through this, and that's the way they choose to survive, then that's how the company is going to save itself. So I do think we'll see both Six Flags and Cedar Fair divest themselves of some property. Doesn't mean the parks will necessarily close. It could mean that some of those things get picked up by another entertainment organization. And there are all sorts of investors that buy theme parks over the years. Somebody else owned Universal in Orlando and SeaWorld at one point, and even Legoland parks are owned by Merlin Entertainment. So you never know who might want to pick up some properties in areas where they don't have parks now. So some parks might just change hands. And that happens all the time in the industry too. But some of the parks that are more, regional, probably be in jeopardy.
Yeah, I am very confident in saying that we are going to lose a few parks in this country, in this world, actually, after this is all said and done. We're going to lose a few parks.
There was a lot of overbuilding in the industry, particularly in countries like China. And, China is really hurting in this whole recession as well. Their economy is really suffering, and they had a lot of investors and people building Disneyland clone type of parks all over China. Most of those parks are not going to make it, in my opinion. I think a lot of those parks were not successful anyway, even during good times. And a lot of those parks also in the Middle East are likely, a lot of parks under development, I think, won't finish now. So I think it's going to be rough. I worry about the theme park design companies. Disney outsources a lot of their work to independent contractors, and Disney's probably going to keep a lot of their projects. They are going to shuffle some off the books for a while. But a lot of companies have just flat out canceled big themed entertainment projects. And I worry how they're going to be able to survive, because these are little companies that really do work from project to project. And some of them are made up of ex-Imagineers that have been let go from Disney over the years. They've started their own companies, and they hang on by having a little more autonomy and having their own company. And those companies are really going to suffer.
They're in big trouble. Yeah. Big trouble. I see companies like BRC still surviving because they do branding and stuff like that way beyond theme parks. But there's so many companies right there that are really, really just praying that something good happens after this is all said and done.
I don't know what that thing would be. That's the hard part. I think we are in need of some positivity. And we like to do a thing where we talk about what we're loving right now. We like to give you all something really positive that we are enjoying right now. And we'd like to hear from you too. So if you don't mind leaving comments down below and let us know what you're loving, we would appreciate it. Also, let us know what you think about anything we've discussed here, whether you agree, disagree, have some additional thoughts, heard something that maybe we haven't heard yet that we would like to hear. So please do that in the comments, and never forget to share us, folks, because the best way to tell us that you appreciate us spending hours recording and then hours more editing is to simply share our videos and podcasts with all your friends and family. So, Chloe, I'm starting with you. You always have something uplifting and cheerful.
Well, something that usually brings me joy is going treasure hunting at antique malls or vintage shops. And since I can't do too much of that right now, I've taken to eBay and Etsy. And I really like, as you can see from my background, collecting vintage Disney goods. I have specific collections like Bambi, or I have some Dalmatians and Musketeer stuff, or lunch boxes. But I don't go for everything as much as I want to. I have very specific curated collections, but t-shirts are a big thing for me, especially if I can find them for less than what they are in the parks. But this one's, let me see if I can get it down. Goofy.
Gorsh, I like that.
I think it's from the 80s actually. And then I have a massive vintage button collection, and I'm just finding more and more. They're usually like $3 or $4 on eBay. So I want to show off a few of my favorites. One of my favorites, I actually got this at the Dapper Day Expo last year, but it's like articulated. It says,
I like that.
I like how it says, I like Disneyland, not like I love it. It's I like it.
I tolerate Disneyland.
This one, our favorite Touchstone movie, Armageddon. I found this at the D23 Expo last year. Love it. And then this one's probably my weirdest one. I got this in a huge button lot. It's the Magical World of Barbie at Epcot from 1994, which like I never witnessed it. I was 2 years old, but I watched YouTube videos and I'm fascinated. Some other fun ones, I have like an original cast member land pavilion button from Epcot, and like lots of old movie ones like Pinocchio and stuff, but I love them. And I really want buttons to make a comeback. I love pins too, but I feel like buttons give a fun pop to your outfit. So I have a ton, but I've been enjoying looking for more online while I'm at home.
That is awesome. I love it. And it's such a great idea. I wonder how Etsy is doing through all of this, because so many people, can make things at home. It's a way to make money. So you're supporting local business on a really micro scale. You're like supporting an individual when you buy Etsy. So I love that idea. Yeah. We should be, instead of giving all of our money to big corporations like Walmart and Target, we should be buying more through Etsy and eBay. I like that idea. Logan, what about you?
So I have, not sure if I've plugged this here already on one of these, but I'm plugging it again because last week's episode was just so good, is Star Wars, The Clone Wars, the final season. I've really been enjoying it. If you've slept on the show, now's the perfect time to catch up, because for Star Wars content, it's quality. It's done by Dave Filoni, the same guy who did The Mandalorian, and helped write it and create it. So if you like The Mandalorian, check out The Clone Wars. It is a cartoon, but it's worth the watch.
Did you read the article from David Dirks about how that's wrapping up and early next month? It ends on Star Wars Day, May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you. Clone Wars is wrapping up. And I hear the last episode was fantastic.
They're breaking it up kind of. It's like 4 more episodes, now 3. And they started with an opening crawl and everything else to make it very cinematic. And they're going to go out with a bang. So I was very impressed, very happy.
You think it's going to have a happy ending?
I don't know if it's spoilers because it's already been. It will intertwine with episode 3, and episode 3 does not have a happy ending. So I think there might be happy endings for some of the characters, but it's gonna dive deep into the whole Order 66 situation. So we'll see how it plays out.
All right. I'll have to tell you, I've only seen a couple episodes because we had to review certain things, but I'm going to sit down and watch the whole thing. 7 seasons, okay. Is that right?
I think it's like 7, yeah. I'm pretty sure it's 7.
Miss Chloe.
Have you watched The Reluctant Dragon yet?
No, I have not.
And now I feel really bad because I really want to watch it.
We're watching Clone Wars.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do Reluctant Dragon first, and then I'll do Clone Wars.
This is like 3 videos ago now. Come on.
We've been watching the craziest stuff, and I've gotten into all of these shows that are about witches and stuff, like The Witcher and
The Witcher.
3 young witches and their mom's dead, and now they're, I like that. So I just like fantasy stuff right now because I'm working all the time. I'm only paying half attention to things. We have some interesting stuff coming up for you on the site, though, about all of this. So we're diving into Disney's history to find you little bits and pieces of Disneyland and Walt Disney and the history. And David Dirks from Asifa Hollywood, which is the Animation Academy, has been writing up a storm of content So has Brady McDonald from the LA Times and OC Register. He's now writing for MiceChat and writing incredible stuff. That's how we got all the information about Bob Iger going to the state commission to reopen the economy, and about when Disneyland might reopen and all that. All of that came from Brady. So make sure you're checking MiceChat throughout the day, because we're doing not just 1 or 2 articles a day. We're doing 3 to 5 articles every single day. And we're trying to keep you entertained. Plus on our YouTube, we're putting these videos. On Facebook, we're doing all sorts of interactive content, asking people to share photographs so that you can feel like you're still in the parks. And we're still doing the podcast. So there's a lot of content going on to keep you all entertained. Doug Barnes.
Yep.
What are you loving right now?
Oh, outside of Eddie Sotto being on the Season Pass podcast?
Oh my gosh.
No.
And Eddie, for folks who don't know, is famous for...
No, he's famous for, well, he's an Imagineer. He's famous for, he created Main Street for Disneyland Paris. That was his first project under Imagineering. Worked on Indiana Jones, worked on all the stuff back basically throughout all the 80s in Imagineering and partially into the 90s. Mission Space was one of his projects that he pitched that got going at Disney World. And Wacky Soapbox Racers at Knott's Berry
Farm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the creator of that. So, yeah. But, yeah, outside of that, I would say that, unfortunately, my favorite time of the year at Knott's Berry Farm is right now, is during the Boysenberry Festival, which is just the greatest celebration ever of any theme park in my eyes.
Well, you're making me sad.
I'm sorry. Here's the good thing, though, is that the 2020 product of the Boysenberry Festival is actually on sale online right now.
That is fantastic. So all that Berry Market product can be found online.
Yeah.
I can get my syrups and jams and pancake mix and all that stuff I'm missing out on.
Yep.
That is great news.
Those necklaces, there's so many cute handmade goods from all the vendors too. That's really exciting that they're doing that.
I love it. What a great idea. I love that, Doug. Thank you. For me, I have been craving Disneyland Churros, and we found out who the vendor of their churros is. It's Tío Pepe. You can buy them online on Amazon or at Smart and Final stores in California. And you can get a box of Tío Pepe churros, and they are the Disneyland churros. So although Disneyland has put out, recipes for making your own churros at home, Disneyland does not make their own churros, folks. They buy them from this company that also manufactures the Tío Pepe brand. So it's to the consumer, they call it Tío Pepe, and you can get them and make them at home.
Does it come with the cinnamon sugar, like pre-made?
Yeah. So you can sprinkle the cinnamon sugar on top, and I put them in my I have a toaster oven at home, which I love. It's also a combination air fryer. So I cheat on everything now, and I cook it on the air fryer to make it extra crispy. And if you spray just a tiny bit of olive oil or avocado oil on top, I buy it the aerosol kind, I spray it on whatever, and then you put in the air fry, you make it super crispy. So sometimes when you bake something, you just dry it out. But when you air fry it, you make it crispy on the top, and it cooks it a lot faster. So it leaves the inside chewy. And that's my tip on making the fake kind of churros at home, because otherwise you have to have oil and make a mix, and it's a mess, and you got to clean up your kitchen, and who's got time for that? I don't have time for that.
Yeah, my question though is, where's the Dole Whip? Can you do that at home?
You can. In fact, I was just looking that up as well. So it's actually a product sold by Dole. It's powdered product, but you need a machine that churns it up. They do make small versions of that machine now. So if you look online for machines that make soft serve ice cream, it's the same thing that the Dole Whip product is in. It just needs to be continuously stirred so it doesn't become granulated. But you could make Dole Whip at home, and if it was a product that you really loved, you can do it. I like the idea of making something fresh for that product, and you can throw pineapples and a little bit of extra sugar and an emulsifier like coconut milk or oat milk, or even heavy cream or milk if you want to make it super rich.
Coconut and sake, and do the loaded Dole Whip from Tropical Hideaway.
Yep. and put a little bit of ice and throw it into a blender that has a really high speed, and you can make your own Dole Whip at home and experiment with it and have fun. One of the things that makes Dole Whip is adding a little bit of vanilla. So it's a lot of fun to play with that stuff. We've been throwing berries and things into blenders and making our own treats at night here at home. So it's just one of the many things. I'll tell you, at the end of our article on MiceChat this week for the Monday update, which has been just getting a ton of traffic, so please make sure you take a look. It's called It's About Time. Disneyland Update, It's About Time, because it's literally all about time. How long the parks are going to be shut down, when they might reopen, the fact that it's grad night time, but it's been canceled. At springtime at Disneyland, since we're missing the parks at their most beautiful, we asked people to submit photos, and we got hundreds of submissions of Disneyland over the years at springtime. So it was literally a Disneyland update all about time. And thank you for your help assembling all those photos, Logan. We could not have finished that update without you.
You got it.
It took me about 16 hours to write and research the update. And I didn't do a single one of the photos. They were all done by Logan, and it had to take you hours more to assemble and watermark and insert and all that. So thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Really appreciate your help. So that stuff is fun for me to have something to do at home when I'm done with my updates and stuff. And I eat all night long, and I'm trying to eat healthy. So I'm making things. And at the bottom of this update last night, I put the recipe for the double pear martini from Carthay Circle Restaurant at California Adventure. And rather than make it the real way, I had some canned pears in the cupboard. And while I was writing about this recipe, I made my own alcoholic beverage at 4:30 in the morning. So I put a whole can of pears into the blender with some ice, a little bit of sugar, and some rum. And I put a little bit of oat milk in there to make it creamy. And I just blended the heck out of it and made like this frappe that was so alcoholic. And as I was finishing this update and exhausted, I was so happy. So experiment out there, folks. Let us know what you've come up with. If you've recreated a Disney dish, we would love to share your video, maybe even on one of our video casts. So if you can produce a neat little fun video and you don't mind sharing it with us, maybe we put it on our next MiceTube Live and share it with everybody, especially if it's an iconic Disney dish or something that the folks in the parks would love. So we appreciate your help. Really enjoying getting the people from the MiceChat community involved. And you can meet all of the other MiceChatters on Facebook, on our Facebook group. So search groups MiceChat, and you'll see the MiceChat Facebook page, and you'll see the MiceChat Facebook group. Go to the group. That's where all the discussions are going. And it's a lot of fun. So we're going to wrap up another MiceChat podcast / MiceTube Live, and we hope you enjoyed this. So depending on where you're getting this, you're either just hearing our voices or you're seeing our happy, smiling faces in quarantine. Behind the fur, there is a smile. I assure you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Doug. It's so nice to have you on.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was great.
On the video cast. We miss you, man.
Hey, I miss this. I'm still working though. That's the one thing is like, it's been nuts for me. So I love doing anything that can just get me away from what I've been dealing with on the outside world lately. So this is nice.
Yeah, and just think about the theme parks for a while. And, it's even though they're closed, folks, we can still talk about them and pretend they're still operating or just remember them and appreciate them. And that's what's going to help keep all of this going and help them restart when the time comes. So we don't want anyone to forget that theme parks are an important part of our lives. Our lives, not everyone's, but definitely ours. Chloe, thank you. Stay safe out there in Florida. Keep your ears open for news from Walt Disney World. I want to hear more about what's going on with the parks in closure or not going on with the parks in closure. And Logan, thank you, sir, for all your help.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Putting together more photos this week for next week's update.
You know it.
And we'll see you out there in MiceChat land again.